in this room and also watching remotely. My name is Josh Landau, and I'm a continuous improvement intern. And this is my presentation entitled Big Wins and Key Takeaways. So I wanted to start off with a little introduction to what's going to be coming. I'm going to start with the introduction of myself, then I'm going to go through our standardized WCO process, then I'm going to go through a step-by-step of my first project, an overview of my second project and third project, talk about a few other projects that I was involved in and some activities that I participated in, and then finish up with Clorox culture and integrity, a little bit about leadership, and then some shout-outs. So a little bit about me. I'm a student at Kennesaw State University. I'm a psych major and stat minor. I anticipate graduating at the end of the fall 2015 semester. I'm originally from New Haven, Connecticut, but I lived most of my adult life in the greater Atlanta area. And some of my hobbies include classical literature, particularly interested in Edna St. Vincent Millay and W.B. Yeats lately. I love traveling. I'm a drummer. This is my actual 2 drum sets and sampler. I love shoes. My dad calls me Emil DeMarcos. And I sell high-end men's clothing and accessories on eBay. So a little bit about what I do at the Clorox company. I'm a continuous improvement WCO intern in the performance tracking group, and I report to Jeff Mueller. The top 3 projects that I'm going to discuss today are the aircraft reservation form, the Agile report, and the LATAM scorecard automations that I did. So starting off with our standardized process in WCO. We start with the business need and ask the question, what's wrong with the current process and what can we do to improve it? Then we move on to the early management phase, where we discover the history of the project, we discover what's required from our stakeholders, and we make sure that there's nothing unclear. Then we go into the build phase. We could possibly be developing a report from scratch, improve what exists, or focus on eliminating waste from something that already exists. After we finish building, we seek acceptance from our stakeholders, make sure everything is there, and then we move on to sustaining and improvement. This could include adding additional functionality, updating to new business needs, and possibly spreading to different areas of the business if it's a good enough idea. So to kick things off with my first project, the Eastern Aviation Flight Reservation Form, the business need was that there was an extensive amount of effort required to fulfill the process of booking a flight. The goal was to streamline the business process by automating the form and formatting the design to greatly reduce the amount of effort needed to fulfill that need. Onto the early management phase, created and reviewed the Scrum task. Then I met with the key stakeholders to confirm what they wanted from me, and met with the initial developer to understand how things were working prior. And finally, I went to my manager and made sure that my initial plan was a go. In the build phase, prepared the existing data for the new application. I updated some of the formatting and the routing logic for the workflow, and I provided regular updates to my stakeholders while I was doing the build. So on this page, I wanted to illustrate a little bit about the aviation form in particular. For those who are going to be at the Kennesaw site meeting in June, I'm going to go into a detailed explanation of this. However, for now, I'm just going to go through a broad overview. The user will start by checking availability in the Eastern Aviation calendar, and then they're going to move on to a responsively designed form that they'll start with the date and move through the entire form, and once they submit, it will go into a SharePoint list that will automatically be able to update the information as they move forward. And then I'm sure after this report goes live, there will be plenty of problems to work out and issues to resolve. So I'll be looking for users to give me the information that I need to make it even better. On to my next project, the Agile report. The business need was similar. It took a lot of time and effort to update and edit the Agile problem list, which was done manually in Excel. And the idea was to convert this report to real time to reduce the effort required. In the early management phase, I created and reviewed the Scrum task, met with the key stakeholders and confirmed what they required of me, and I also met with the initial developer on this one to understand how the existing application worked. Moving on to the build stage, I staged the data in the reporting system. I designed the initial report and reviewed it with my team, and after they gave me some feedback, I went on to make it a little bit better in the 2.0 version, and also provided regular updates. Once the project is accepted, I'll move on to the sustain and improve, and hopefully this one will be spread to other areas of business. So here's an example of the beginning of this report. It was done in Excel, and it looks something like this. Actually, this is exactly what it looked like. And the information was taken from the SharePoint list. And now, the report is running real time and looks very similar to the Excel experience. However, any updates and additions to the list will be automatically generated in this report. And for my last project, the LATAM scorecard automation, and you should be picking up on a theme by now, extensive work required and effort to fulfill the need of making these scorecards. So the goal was to automate these scorecards with conditional formatting and make it much easier to produce the scorecards when they were needed. In early management, I did everything that I've done in the past 2 projects. However, I also had to research particularly Excel and discover what kind of functionality I could gain in that system. In the build phase, I constructed expressions to automatically generate key metrics, and I also created conditional formatting to provide the color code for the cells. And I also provided regular updates to my stakeholders. Once the project was accepted, which it was, I moved on to an extensive round of fixing different issues and adding additional functionality that was later decided was needed. So this one was a particular project that required a lot of ongoing interactive support, which I was happy to do. So here's a little snapshot of the order entry piece of the order to cash sheet on the Argentina scorecard. What I got right here is an expression to determine what color this cell should be, and this block is actually hidden on the scorecard. So this transfers over to right here, which is conditionally formatted to show the same color. Down here, you can see the green on the green. On that second arrow down, that's just a simple count of how many green cells there are in that particular region of the scorecard. And then down here is the most complicated expression, which uses these 3 percentages to calculate an overall rating for that particular part of the scorecard. Some of the other projects that I participated in, and also some activities, I worked on the organizational empowerment report, which was primarily to determine functionality in web-based reporting with an Excel field. I participated in helping with documentation and creating some of my own to help future interns and future employees to understand processes. I worked a little bit on SharePoint design and search engine optimization, and I also worked on COPAC design on the dashboards. So I was very happy for Danielle and Vamshi to help get me included in our volunteering activities for the STEM presentations in local elementary schools. As you can see, we had quite a good time on that one. And also I did a tour of the Pratt Industries and the Forest Park plant in nearby RDC, which are 3 places that you have to truly see with your own eyes to understand the scale of that operation. Okay, so on to my favorite part. Wanted to talk a little bit about my personal and professional development while I've been at Clorox. So initially, I thought that I wanted to go the psychology route, and I was pretty much fully resigned to spending another 10 years in school, getting my PhD, and practicing clinical psych. It wasn't until somebody recommended that I get a stat minor and improve my chances of getting a job in psychology that I got exposed to something of much more interest. So once I started taking classes in statistics, I participated in a contest called the R Day at Kennesaw State. And R is a statistical analysis tool that is open source, it's free. And because of the presentation that I gave, I was able to land an internship in Fathom, which is the big data division of North Highlands, a global consulting group. It was at this point that I discovered that statistics and IT offered all of the things that I was looking for in a job. I was concerned that I wouldn't be able to fulfill my human interaction needs and my artistic capabilities being used in my job. So I was very happy to discover that that is actually possible in IT. So once that started, it built momentum for me to move into the final phases of my statistics minor, and I decided to do an internship at the Clorox company for my credit for my last course in my statistics minor. About the midpoint of this internship, things drastically changed for me. I'm very skeptical, and it takes a lot for me to actually fully agree with something and buy into it. And that point came about the smack dab in the middle of my internship. You know, coming in, I heard a lot about the people and how much they care and all these things. And my initial response was skepticism. So it took some time to truly believe that. And many things happened to affirm that for me. So with that buy-in came an interest in further investigating ways that I could improve both my personal and professional life through some of the core values of Clorox. At that time, I moved on to the final phases of my internship. It's sad. And I sought specific advice from people that I looked up to, role models, particularly in the Kennesaw office, to find out exactly how I practically apply some of these interests that I have in furthering my personal and leadership capabilities. Here's a little example of one of the things that I was particularly focused on towards the final quarter of my internship. So I realized at a certain point, after speaking with Dave, that I needed to focus more on consistency when it comes to leadership. I lacked the consistency to influence the people around me, both in my personal life and in the office. And you know, having trustworthiness and fairness pretty much under control, this gave me a good opportunity to hone in on one particular skill. After talking with Keith, I realized the importance of leaning on the team and letting them actually do the things that they're best at. And by both trusting them and seeing the results, that's the most powerful piece of leadership, I believe. Something I'm not that good at yet, but I'm working on it. And finally, Samantha helped me realize that I need to be more focused on my interactions with different people and how I was approaching them. Not everybody is the same, and not everybody's going to feel the same way about certain things. That particularly came in handy on my interview process. And finally, I'd want to give a few shout-outs. Special shout-out to Carolyn and Johnny for both showing patience and giving me life skills advice as well as professional and technical advice. Dean Karekis, especially for always smiling and always being in a great mood, helping the overall morale in the Kennesaw office, and also talking to me about a lot of cool stuff about his life. Special thanks to Jonathan Karuba, who made the time in his busy schedule to help me with the Eastern Aviation Flight Forum. And special thanks to Danielle Freeman for giving me the opportunity to participate in the volunteer work at the elementary schools. And to finish off, the most influence, my boss manager, Jeff Mueller, who not only helped me through technical issues and also work-related issues, but he also showed me what it looks like to live integrity, and it was a true inspiration. Thank you. Any questions?
On your turning point, was it a specific event or an accumulation of events? What tripped that switch for you?
That's a great question. I guess it was kind of an amalgamation of different experiences, more so tied to my personal life. So, just a really great opportunity at Clorox to explore some things that I was already interested in and there was a need for in my personal life. Anybody else? Near or far? All right, thank you.